Good day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan Battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the performance of the TEQ first form of Cell in the Cell Max event. Now for those of you who don't know, or maybe don't care, the Cell Max event is basically an event, as always. This is my disclaimer, so just deal with it. The Cell Max event is an event that is best taken on with units that have high levels of damage reduction, or that have evasion, or that have guard, or a combination of all three, two of them, whatever it is. So it's definitely an incredibly tough event, and it's not something that can just be taken on with any unit. It's also important to mention that any unit that has the int typing generally has a higher level of advantage against Cell just due to typing mechanics. So those units naturally have quite a high level, I want to say, of benefit over others, so they are favored in this event. In terms of the event itself, it's also structured in a way that the first two phases are relatively difficult, but the final phase is not overtly, the first two phases are relatively difficult, but the final phase is not even remotely as easy as those phases. In fact, the final phase is probably up there as one of the hardest, if not the hardest stage in the game currently. And because of the fact that the first two phases don't necessarily take very long, it starts to kind of make it very difficult for players. Basically because players kind of have to consider not really stacking and things like that, which are usually mechanisms players bring to try and counteract the difficulty of stages. So you can't really do that. Now Cell is fortunate in that he's a pretty solid unit. He does not take long to build up. It only takes him 3 super attacks to get to his max defense. He is beneficial in that he has no typing disadvantages, and also he brings healing, which I think overall is a nice utility to have. Beyond that, I would say the other things that he brings, or at least are advantages in his favor, is that he is actually on androids, which is a very strong team. He's also an Android Cell Saga, which is also a very strong team because it allows you to feature probably one of the better Cell Max killers in the form of Cell. So Int Cell is one of the better units for basically defeating, Cell Max. It sounds weird to say that Cell's good at killing himself, but yeah, basically Cell is so. His team is pretty solid from that perspective. Plus, he's got some really strong support units. He's got really useful abilities like the active skill of the Android 17 and 18. So yeah, there's just like a lot that basically surmounts to being super duper helpful when it comes to him as a unit and on his team. I think overall he's a very solid unit. He obviously gains his defense over time, and he has good start of turn defense, but not really good enough to handle Cell Max. Cell Max is a whole different kettle of fish, so it's not really something I can just suggest. But what I can say is that he does a good job of being very decent after super. So after super, not like he gains a huge amount, but after super he does have additional defense, because he raises attack and defense on his super attack, which is obviously super important. Plus he also increases his defense as well when firing a super, so he definitely increases his defense quite a bit. He also obviously has the ability to fire multiple super attacks, which is also super important. So yeah, just in general he's in a good position. We're going to see him in 2 turns. Actually, we're going to be quite fortunate from that regard. So we're going to see him in 2 turns, in this first one and in the second one, which is going to be really, really good. I think overall, I would probably say Cell's definitely usable. I think he's usable in a lot of content, to be honest. A lot of that is due to his own personal strength, his utility he provides as well, but it's also due to the strength of his team. The fact that he can be run on arguably one of the stronger teams in the game, with definitely one of the stronger units in the game, I think is something that pushes things into his favor. I think it's very easy for him to look pretty good because his team is good, and he's also good. So yeah, it's always a nice combination when you get a good unit that's on a good team. And here we're not going to be able to see him take an attack, which is fine. We're going to see him do some decent damage. Now the only problem is he can't do huge damage to Cell Max, because obviously his crit only procs on units that are going to attack down and defense down, and he cannot put units and attack down and defense down because, you know, Cell Max is immune to that. So that's the only, I would say, real significant problem, at least from that perspective, because now you're kind of stuck in a position whereby you don't really have, you know, the best, how can I say, you don't really have the best positioning for like him as a unit to thrive offensively. But we're going to see him, you know, in a like defensive situation pretty soon, which I think is pretty good. So yeah, I think overall he's going to look really solid. You know, I personally find him to be really, really good. I think he's a really good unit, and I think he, in general, just is a unit that's incredibly reliable. You know, and will help you fill out the team. Will he help you dominate the run? No, but to have a unit as defensively strong as him, I think is good, because it will help you potentially survive the turn to get, you know, to get good old int perfect cell back on rotation. But yeah, so let's take a look at good old, you know, cell, and let's just see how well he does. Obviously here he is going to, you know, take an attack afterwards, which is fine, and then we're going to be able to see like how much damage he takes, which is what we really want to see. You know, normals are important, probably the most important. 82k is not bad at all. Like 82k is, honestly speaking, pretty solid, and I think, you know, is really, really good. You can also fire off, you know, 3 supers in a turn, so you could see that come down. There's also big bad bosses that could be activated. He's got a little bit to gain from his links, so there is, you know, room or capacity to grow. Not the biggest, but there is definitely room for him to grow, and he can definitely look very impressive. So yeah, I would say he's super duper solid. If not a dominant force, he's definitely a good addition to the roster. And that's it from me. Bye.